Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. When I started doing photography, I did music live sessions. I absolutely love it. Just being a part of like that kind of community, talking to people and watching the artists play. I think it has a lot of soul.
I thought I found all the answers, but the questions escape me. I'm starting to see again. I got no more money.
And I've been really excited to shoot with the GFX for a long time. The first stop on this journey is the Canopy Sessions, which is a small music kind of like night. I'm going to steal a couple of the artists here tonight and shoot around the corner, down the alleyway. Hopefully getting these kind of sort of like small music live sessions, as well as doing photography. I want to really test it in a low light situation with the autofocus, as well as the image quality. It's going to be interesting to see what it comes out like. Anyway, let's get in and continue. I've always really enjoyed taking photos of musicians and being a part of that kind of creative atmosphere. And when it came to the GFX, it's a camera that I've often thought would be a really great storytelling device for video, although very capable of photos. And with this situation in mind, the first thing I thought was to take it into one of the environments that it wouldn't otherwise be taken. And that's in a dark, low-lit environment where we can really just focus on its ability to do that, as it's something, at least for me, that I think is most important. If I was to switch out of my current setup to something like this, is
I've been waiting for this for a long time.
a GFX, a medium format camera, actually capable of doing general storytelling content. We find out a little bit more about that in this video. The rest of the content of me talking shall be in the streets of Cardiff, but we're going to be bouncing back and forth in between both this shoot and in the streets as well, so you can really see for yourself how good a quality this camera is. What I feel like Fuji do really well with their cameras, at least for the most part, is have a lot of soul to them. Now, this camera is a camera that I've been trying to actually have a go with for a really long time, because it's something that I am very tempted to get, especially with the announcement of the Fujifilm Externia, which is the cinema version of this. You know, I think Fuji are really making an effort to be a part of the sort of like video / hybrid market, and you can really use it as a video camera. And for something in the cinema industry with the same amount of quality in terms of using a medium format sensor, you're looking to spend in excess of 60k. So, you know, although yes, this is an expensive camera, on the grand scheme of things, you can get cinema-like quality, like high cinema-like quality, for not too much money. But of course, this is a photo-first camera, and you've got 100 megapixels there, medium format sensor, which produces some absolutely stunning images. But what's more, and something that I noticed whilst editing the photos from the open mic night, the grain profile I was expecting to be a lot worse. I had to push it to 5,000 ISO, in some cases in excess of that, to actually get a good exposure. But even then, zooming in on the images, they're incredibly sharp. The grain looks really nice. And yes, I could apply denoising via Lightroom and that, and yes, to get a really great quality image out of it. But just out of camera, the RAWs are wonderful to use, and even the photos. Now, coming further into that, this is a Fuji camera, so you've actually got your film simulations there, which is also a massive part of their brand and their identity in general. If you are somebody that just wants to post directly out of camera, you have that capability in the film simulations. They are excellent, but if you're spending this kind of money on a camera, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be using the film simulations. And if you do have this camera and you use film simulations, make sure you put it in down below. I'd love to see your work, but mostly I would say people are going to actually be editing it in post. Anyway, this is a really beautiful camera. We're just going to be going around Cardiff, taking some photos in a much better lighting situation. Of course, this is Wales, so it's grey, moist and wet. All great words to use in a video, and I'm sure it's going to help with retention. But from the 19th to the 21st of June, Camera Centre is sponsoring Wales and West Photography Show. where you're going to get the chance to check out some of the latest and greatest tech. Also listen to some incredible creatives and learn some new skills. So make sure you sign up for your ticket. The link is down below. And wow, I hope you've enjoyed the video so far. For shooting everything for this video, I actually asked to borrow the 55mm f1.7 because this is a focal length that I am kind of like most comfortable with. You're talking about around about 40, 35 kind of millimeter if you actually do the math. I don't really know the math off the top of my head, so probably going to have some VO and then mute this mic as Stuart in VO explains the math. And yeah, camera and stuff. The GFX has a 0.79 crop factor, which basically turns the 55 into a 44. It's a 44. The great thing about having a medium format sensor and like having full frame, you're going to have a much better depth of field, and medium format photos I feel have a certain characteristic. Well, you can't see it really for yourself. There you go, look at that. That right there is a medium format sensor. It's just, it's quite a bit bigger than what you would expect out of a full frame sensor, and with that you get a bunch of added benefits. Of course, this is 100 megapixels, and it just creates some beautiful images. I can't really say anything other than that, to be honest with you. So something I noticed between the two shoots that I've done with this so far, so of course the music shoot and then the kind of like street shooting, is this is a lot of fun to shoot in the streets. And if you're kind of, you know, having a little bit more of like a hobbyist approach to it, of course this is perhaps a little bit on the higher end of the hobbyist kind of cameras, and most likely will be used professional. But what's great about this is I actually quite like the screen. So of course you've got the tilt screen that goes backwards and forth like that, but then you've also got a screen that goes like that. And how I like to use this is when I'm walking down the street doing street photography, I can kind of shoot in behind me, look to get kind of like people in the moment and actually having fun, whilst also keeping that kind of like discreet approach to doing street photography. And then full HD at 120. Inside of this, you've got a bunch of different kind of crop ratios you can apply to your image. So the different recording formats is GF, which is the full size of the actual sensor, per mister, which is slightly cropped, 35mm, so it becomes a bit more of a full frame crop ratio. And then you've got your anamorphic there as well, which is a wider angle of a 35mm frame, similar to what you would have expected out of like an X-pan kind of photo when it comes to film. One thing I would say is when it comes to the GF lens, or at least this one, the autofocus feels a little bit kind of sticky until you turn on the eye autofocus, which actually does perform pretty well. This is a Fuji camera, so the autofocus isn't perfect, but it does what it needs to and doesn't really affect kind of like the feeling and the experience you have with the camera. Coming from some of the footage that I actually did on the open mic night, I decided to take a couple of the artists out and actually try the Sennheiser wireless lav system on the top here to get some music live sessions purely filmed on this, in which I filmed in F-Log. I will admit, the grade on that footage was some of the best colours I've actually seen out of one of the cameras, any of the cameras that I've used. It got me really excited to kind of shoot with. This isn't a camera with like high performance specs like, let's say, the FX3 where you've got 4K 120p. It's not that. Can it film some really good stuff in cinema quality? Yes. Would you necessarily use it for the lenses, the GF lenses, to do most of the film work with the AF? I think they've got a lot here to work on the autofocus system, right? But pairing this up with a medium format cine lens, going to be absolutely killer. And the quality you get out of it, the codec that you shoot with pretty much throughout the camera is excellent, and the footage just looks gorgeous, and it's something that I was super excited by. The other thing to mention when it does come to the Fuji GFX 100 is it's actually a GFX 100 Mark II, is that it's a nice grey as well. So if you did want kind of like an A camera to shoot kind of stuff with, It does match up with an FX3 in terms of color. Just saying, not necessarily the reason to buy it, but does make your gear look pretty. So this is very much a step away from their usual design process of cameras. It's very reminiscent of their XH2S kind of like design profile. However, it's done a little bit different. It's sort of like a modern / classical design to a really, it just looks really pretty basically. You do have the ability to take off the viewfinder, which is really cool, and something that I would love to see from Fuji is an actual monitor to just clip in instead of this. That would be really awesome in terms of like a cinema profile for it. I don't think it's going to come, but it's really cool. You can actually get a waist level viewfinder in replacement to put it there, or if you just want to shoot without a viewfinder, then you can do that quite well. Anyway, depends on how often you use a viewfinder, really. So coming in just a little bit closer, of course you have all your design kind of like profiles that you'd usually use, a lot of like customizable buttons that do certain things on the camera, and you can set it up to yourself. When it comes to changing the shutter speed and ISO, this actually clicks in and allows you to select different modes it kind of like can control, and it's the same here as well. So it's very moddable and very customizable to what you want to do and whatever you want to do with the camera. And then that even comes into further detail when it comes to the dial over here. Of course, you've got your manual, your aperture, your shutter, and your program modes, but you've got then 6 customizable modes for you to use for whatever you want. This does actually have a full HDMI. So if you're using this with a monitor, it's got a nice strong HDMI there. It is charged by USB-C as well, which that's okay. It's not great, but you can actually get a general charger for it if you want. And again, for studio work, because this is going to be used in a studio situation quite a bit, you got your Ethernet output there. Other than that, it is a CF Express Type B card, and then an SD if you want to use it. We're shooting with an SD. I shot with the CF Express the other day. Next thing to really talk about here is that this does shoot 8 frames a second, which if you're a sports shooter, that's an absolutely god-awful spec there for it. But you got to bear in mind, this is a medium format camera. It is 100 megapixels, and transferring that high detail of an image faster than 8 frames per second means the camera's going to end up being a lot more expensive. So it's kind of a good kind of like mid-ground, and if you wanted faster frames per second, you'd really want to make sure the autofocus is going to keep up with faster moving subjects. This is not an autofocus camera. This is a camera for people who genuinely love photography, want to take the highest detail quality images possible, and again, have fun. This is a camera that I've actually really enjoyed shooting with, and it's the first camera in a long time, apart from the R1, which I'm checking out at the moment as well, that actually fits my hand correctly as well. Check that out. It's actually the right size. The viewfinder has 9.44 million dots, which means it has incredibly good quality. You can change the performance with the custom buttons on the actual camera, which means if you prefer just like the speed rather than the quality, you can do that. On that note, it can actually show you up to 120 frames a second of refresh in the EVF, which means it's really clear and it looks really good to your eye. As with most cameras that are coming out at the moment, it does actually have 8 stops of image stabilization, which worked out quite well when I was filming the artist down the alleyway next to where I was shooting at the venue, meaning that the footage is handheld. Now, I did do a video with the GFX 100S Mark II, which is a slightly sportier version of this, and I was so impressed with the image stabilization at 500mm that it rapidly became one of my, well, a lot of the photos from that experience became some of my favorite kind of like wildlife photography that I've actually done. Very powerful, overall a really powerful camera. What do I ultimately think of the camera? Like I said, this is a camera that I've personally wanted to try out for a very long time, because not only do you have great photography specs, you have great video specs there, and in some cases almost industry-leading video specs for medium format consumer, well, say consumer, kind of consumer camera. The GFX series is of course very expensive to really get into, and that's really the first thing that you're going to encounter when looking at it. What do you have out of it? You have quality, you have cameras which you just love to take photos with, and the photos you get out of them, you're just happy. It's not the perfect camera though. It doesn't have great autofocus. It doesn't have super high frame rates, that super high quality video, but it has everything that you really need for it. It has brilliant quality f-log, absolutely great noises in the background, and great quality, yeah, too much noises happening in the background. I've decided to stand next to a crossing. But the camera overall, absolutely killer. It's a camera that I am going to endeavour to probably get for myself, for fun, for professional work, and all the little bits in between. It'd be great for wedding photographers, people that are looking to do landscapes, product photography. I mean, this is a studio camera through and through in many cases, but it's ultimately a fun camera to use, absolutely gorgeous, and something I think most photographers would aspire to. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day, and put in a comment in down below if you liked the video or if you hated it. Also, just go do it. I'll message back and be like, it's cool bro, but it's starting to rain, so gonna have to find some cover. Have a good day.